Children of Lord Gwyn, his power vested within them, the Princess of Sunlight and her brother, Sorcerer of the Dark Sun, take refuge in the old capital of Anor Londo. As the hollowed undead make their way within the Stronghold, the glorious light from above bathes the capital in sunlight. But not all is as it appears. A grand illusion hides a darker truth within.
With the advent of Universes Beyond, Magic the Gathering has released cards that reflect a host of iconic, popular, and interesting franchises. In this series, we'll take a look at fan-favorite characters from different mediums and muse on what their cards may look like. In the spirit of Universes Beyond, join me today in asking the question, what if... Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between. My name's Kieran, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Magic the Gathering What If? What if Dark Souls was in Magic the Gathering? That is the question we are asking today in our third episode on the topic, and today we are going to be looking at another commander to use as a hypothetical example of what a Dark Souls card may look like, and we're going to pair 5 cards alongside them. So if you haven't done so already, please leave a like, leave a comment down below, or comment after the video after you've seen the card designs and you have your thoughts on them, because you know we always want to hear your guys' thoughts and ideas on the cards we're showing off in this series. So we continue with Dark Souls. We're not done yet. We have several more Dark Souls characters to show off, and today is no different. And today we are looking at a very popular character in the franchise. So if you want to see more characters like this, be sure to follow us if you like. We also just got a Twitter account for Filthy Casuals. I've been hesitant to do it because, you know, it takes time to, you know, do uploads and react to people and blah, blah, blah. But I thought it was important and a good way to kind of spread Filthy Casuals a little bit, connect with other Magic the Gathering content creators, and stay in contact with you guys, the audience. So if you would like, go feel free to follow us. I'll put a link or something in the description or somewhere on the screen, and you can take a look. I'll be posting all the videos there, as well as maybe some comments now and then. But without further ado, we are going to jump into today's episode. Quick note, if you want to know about the design philosophies of the cards and how we're going about making them, feel free to watch the first 2 episodes of this series where we kind of briefly go over what the design philosophies of these cards are. Just as a little recap, you know, we're trying to design the cards to be very thematic to the franchise, designing around the commander format. We're putting an emphasis on making the characters come to life and feel like they're from the franchise, and even if that adds a little bit of complexity to the cards, that's fine. That's what we're here to do. And that's kind of the big takeaways. If you want to see the full breakdown of what the design philosophies are, please go back and watch the other 2 episodes of the series. I'm actually filming a few of these episodes back to back, as I actually am going to be on vacation the next few weeks. No idea where Colin is, my co-host for this channel. I'm gonna have to touch base with him at some point. But we're hoping to put out an episode every week or every 2 weeks, as we normally do. This series obviously is a bit shorter. The episode lengths are a bit shorter, so trying to get these out every week, but it is a bit challenging, so stick around with us. If we're not releasing one week or another, then don't freak out. We're going to be coming out sometime in the future, but we are going to be trying to do this on a weekly schedule if we can, just in the meantime. But without further ado, let's jump into the cards. We actually hinted at the commander for this episode as another sort of pseudo pair, and I asked you guys in the comment section to guess what that was. Our last episode was about Ornstein and Smo. I didn't say Sorenstein this time. And today we are doing another iconic pair from Dark Souls. Now, I'm not going to spoil it. Let's reveal the first card for today.
Thou hast journeyed far and overcome much, chosen undead. Come hither, child.
All right, so the first card is Guinevere, Princess of Sunlight. This is a very popular, famous character from Dark Souls, and there's a lot of memes about it because, as you can see, her design choices are very unique to Dark Souls. Typically, Dark Souls has a very gothic, medieval flavor to it, and this definitely goes into the more anime waifu territory, for lack of a better word. Although some of the memes around this character in particular are very iconic to Dark Souls. Players were able to leave messages for each other in the game, and some of them are creative, to say the least. Now, Guinevere is a Princess of Sunlight. She's the daughter of Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight, and there's a couple interesting little things about her. So she's a 2-mana white for a 0/1. So she's easy to take out. She's not very tough, and she's a legendary enchantment creature, an illusion cleric. Now, you might be wondering why that is. We'll get to that in a moment. But when you cast Guinevere or a white instant or sorcery for your first time each turn, if your devotion to white is greater than X, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast the spell, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a white instant or sorcery with mana value less than or equal to X and put it into your hand, then shuffle. So this is a bit of a complex ability, but I'll break it down for you here. Basically, when you cast your first instant or sorcery, if it's white, you're going to want your devotion to white. That is the little white pips that are on your permanents. So Guinevere, for example, provides 2 to your devotion to white. You're going to want your devotion to white to be greater than the spell you cast. So if you cast a 4-mana spell, you're going to want to have a number of white pips equal to 5 or greater among the permanents you control. And when that happens, basically you're going to look at the top of your deck, kind of like Cascade, and find a card that is less than or equal to the card that you just cast. So it's kind of similar to Cascade in that sense, in that you cast a 5-mana white sorcery, you got to look for another instant or sorcery that costs 5 or less and put it into your hands. You're always going to be able to kind of rotate your spells as long as your devotion is high. Guinevere also has a secondary ability, which is if she would leave the battlefield, you exile her and return her to the battlefield transformed under her owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. And now this is where the enchantment illusion comes in, because in Dark Souls, Guinevere is actually not real. She's a illusion, a projection from another character placed in front of the player to try to guide them. But if the player is to actually attack Guinevere, you will reveal that all of the castle around you has been an illusion, and things are a little more grim than you might have expected. So without further ado, let's look at the flip side of Guinevere.
Mark the words of myself, Gwyndolin. Thou shalt not go undone.
Okay, so now we get to see the flip side. It's a 2-sided card, and the flip side is Dark Sun Gwyndolin. Now, Gwyndolin is Guinevere's brother and also son of Gwyn. They all have Gwyn in their name, so it makes saying them a little bit tough to do. But Gwyndolin is a legendary creature, a wizard god. So this is kind of where we delve into the lore of Dark Souls and kind of the pantheon. So Gwyn and his children are actually gods in the Dark Souls universe. And so Dark Sun Gwyndolin isn't a human, he's actually a wizard god, and mono black, because, you know, we gotta have that duality between him and Guinevere. So when Guinevere goes away and she's only a 0/1, you're gonna be able to flip into Dark Sun Gwyndolin at the end step. Now, Gwyndolin is a lot stronger. He's a reach. He has reach and boss soul Gwyndolin. When he dies in combat, he's going to be giving your opponent a boss soul. But keep in mind that because he has boss soul Gwyndolin, he's a little bit more tough to take out. And he's a 4/3, which is a lot bigger stat line than his sister. And similarly, when you cast a black instant or sorcery for the first time, if your devotion to black is greater than the amount of mana spent to cast a spell, this time you get to copy the spell and choose new targets. So Guinevere brings instants and sorceries into your hand. Gwyndolin actually gets to copy the spells that you play. So they both kind of work off devotion as a mechanic and care about instants and sorcery. So the cool thing about this is that you get to play a bit of an Orzhov black and white spellslinger deck around these characters, and have an emphasis on devotion itself. So there's a couple of themes that we're going to get into, and we're going to be able to see those in some of the support cards that they get. But Guinevere and Gwyndolin, 2 major characters in Dark Souls. Gwyndolin is the actual only boss character you get to fight. Guinevere is just the illusion, the projection. She died many years before the events of the game. So, or at least, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened to Guinevere. But yeah, Dark Sun Gwyndolin and Guinevere, Princess of Sunlight, are our commanders for today. Let's dive into and see their first support card. All right, the first support card for these guys is Sunlight's Bounty, a 4-mana enchantment, white, cost 2 colorless and 2 white pips and has a vanishing 10. So vanishing is an ability that says at the beginning of your upkeep, you basically remove a vanishing counter from it. And when it has 0 vanishing counters, you have to sacrifice it. So in theory, Sunlight's Bounty is going to last for 10 turns. However, when a creature you control would be destroyed, remove a time counter from Sunlight's Bounty. And if you do, regenerate that creature. So this kind of acts as like a source of regeneration that you can use. And when your creatures are about to be destroyed, you'll be able to regenerate them. So you basically have 10 turns or 10 charges of regeneration, keeping in mind that this is a mandatory effect, so you're not able to choose not to do it. But Sunlight's Bounty comes with a third effect, which is probably its most important one. Mana costs of spells you control count towards your devotion. So the interesting thing about this is it pairs very well with Guinevere and Gwyndolin, in that when you cast an instant or sorcery, you're going to actually count the instant or sorcery you're casting as part of your devotion, which you normally would only look at the permanents that you have. So if you were to cast a card, for example, like Wrath of God, which has 2 colorless mana and 2 white mana, those 2 white mana pips are actually going to count towards your devotion, making it a lot easier to trigger Guinevere and Gwyndolин's effects. If you go out of your way, you can actually make some weird combos too, where if you cast a spell with a lot of, for example, black mana pips and have a way to flash in a card that has devotion, you'd be able to get the devotion and see the other card on the stack and get that as part of your devotion. So there's some janky combos, but for the most part, Sunlight's Bounty is meant to support the commanders themselves. Sunlight's Bounty is actually in reference to kind of the spells and divine radiant spells you get as part of Guinevere's covenant, which is what you do when you join basically a group in Dark Souls. You join their covenant and you can unlock different abilities and weapons and such. And so Sunlight's Bounty sort of represents that healing ability that you'll be able to get through that, and that is where the regeneration comes from. The devotion is just more of a bonus that actually works as part of the enchantment and helps out the commanders, and felt somewhat flavorful itself. So you could even imagine that as you're part of the covenant, you're kind of helping their devotion. That's Sunlight's Bounty. I think it's a very cool design, and yeah, as always, let us know down in the comments, what do you think of these cards? But without further ado, let's jump into the next support card.
Lord Vessel bestowed upon the chosen undead, who is destined to succeed Lord Gwyn.
All right, so the next card is an artifact called Lord Vessel. So in Dark Souls, you're actually, the first half of the game or so, you're actually trying to get the Lord Vessel, which is this thing that is going to allow you to teleport around the world. Up until that point, you had to walk everywhere. And so when you actually talk to Guinevere, you get the Lord Vessel from her, and you're basically looking to feed it the Lord Souls, which are the big boss souls throughout the game, to be able to kind of go to the final area and fight Gwyn. Now, the Lord Vessel is a legendary artifact that costs 4 mana, and you can tap it, return all lands exiled by Lord Vessel to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control. The timing of this is important. It's important to return the lands first, because the second part is exile target land you control, and then search your library for a land and put it on the battlefield tapped, activate only as a sorcery. So basically what this allows you to do is tap it and exile one of your lands, and go look for any other land you want and put it on the battlefield. But you're only ever going to be able to rotate one land at a time, kind of to represent your fact that you can teleport from different bonfires across the world. So I guess there are probably some janky things you could do, or you could copy the effect or such, but the idea is that you basically are able to rotate lands in and out and bring more lands in as you go. So powerful effect if you have a land-based deck, and there's actually a land that we're going to show off that you might want to be cycling for with this card. The second part of the ability is more of a flavor thing. You can actually sacrifice a boss soul and put a charge counter on a permanent you control. This is to represent the card Estus Flask, which actually gets powered up in the game through the Lord Vessel. So in the game, as you give it boss souls, you're basically able to power up your Estus Flask. And if you remember from the previous episode, an Estus Flask cares about having charge counters so that you can gain life and regenerate your creatures. So do you want to sacrifice a boss soul for that? Maybe, it depends. I guess you could gain 10 life, which is pretty strong, but it's more of a flavor thing than anything else. And that's Lord Vessel. It's an iconic piece of the game, and something you're striving to unlock throughout. So let's see where the Lord Vessel takes us with our next card.
Seat of Gwyn's power, where the sun never sets, and the moon keeps constant watch.
All right, so we actually have another dual-faced card for you today, which actually has been harder on me because I have to design 2 halves of a card, but I had to do it because it made sense thematically and actually pairs very well with Guinevere and Gwyndolin. And that is Anor Londo Sunlight Stronghold, which is the main capital of the game that you go to and meet Guinevere. And when the illusion is broken, you'll be able to meet Gwyndolin as well and see the dark side of the castle. So Anor Londo is a legendary enchantment land, which is kind of unique in that it's kind of an illusion. Obviously, we can't put the illusion creature type on it, but it is going to stay an enchantment. You can tap it for 1 colorless mana, or you can tap it to add 2 white mana, but you can only activate that if you control a legendary creature. So that's a very powerful ability, being able to play a land and tap it for 2 mana, but you're only going to be able to do it if you have a legendary creature. That's kind of to represent the fact that there's a legendary god or whatever in the castle that is able to generate that mana, probably Guinevere, a shout out to her. Now, there's also a static ability with this card. Your devotion is increased by 2. So that's your devotion no matter what color. So if you're talking about your devotion of white, your devotion of black, doesn't matter. If you were to put this card into another deck with like green or red or blue, you'd be able to increase your devotion to those as well. But your devotion as a general baseline is increased by 2 by default. And then like Guinevere, when Anor Londo would leave the battlefield, you exile it and return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So this land is actually quite powerful. You can tap it for 2 mana. It increases your devotion by 2. The fact that it's an enchantment, though, is its downside. It actually is quite vulnerable because a lot of things that target enchantments are going to be able to destroy it, and being able to destroy your opponent's lands are quite strong. However, it does have the upside that when it does get destroyed by an enchantment destroying effect or a land destroying effect, it will flip. And when it flips, it's going to flip into Anor Londo Darkmoon's Vigil, which taps for a generic black mana. It's a legendary land. It's not an enchantment because this isn't the illusion that Gwyndolin has placed on the castle, but it taps for a black mana. Your devotion is only increased by 1. So generally speaking, this land is actually worse than the flip side, because when it gets destroyed, you're actually going to be able to keep it, but it's just going to be a weaker version. And the illusion can be recast on the castle by paying 3 colorless and 2 white mana, tapping it to transform it back to its illusion state. So kind of get a flip back and forth between it. You probably want to keep it on its white state with the Sunlight's Stronghold, but if it does get destroyed, at least you still get to keep your castle, and you get to still increase your devotion by 1. But I thought it was a very cool design for the flavor, and Dark Souls fans, I think you'll appreciate the fact that you can kind of see both sides of Anor Londo. But what's within Anor Londo? Well, let's check out our next card.
This golden bow is imbued with powerful magic and is most impressive with moonlight arrows.
All right, continuing on the legendary artifact equipment theme from the last episode, we have the Darkmoon Bow, which is Gwyndolin's bow. Obviously, Guinevere doesn't have a weapon because she's not real. She's just an illusion. But Gwyndolin has a bow, and it shoots magic, and it is the Darkmoon Bow. So it costs 2 black mana for legendary artifact equipment, has the same abilities as Ornstein and Smoke. This was something I didn't plan for, but when I was creating the card, I was like, why not just create a cycle of artifact equipment that kind of fits the flavor, and you're going to be able to tutor with your boss souls when you get them. So Darkmoon Bow is an equip 3 or equip a legendary creature for 1, and it's a very simple effect. Equipped creature gains reach and +X/+0, where X is your devotion to black. So this actually just fits really well with the devotion theme. If you have a devotion to black that's like anything over 4, you're probably going to be worth playing this because you're going to get reach and +4/+0. This actually kind of turns your commander into a proto Voltron commander, where maybe you can end up winning through combat damage just if you have high devotion. And that's kind of an interesting take, especially considering the deck is more of a spellslinger deck. So it gives you an alternate win condition in that sense, and already provides 2 devotion itself. If you had this and the previous card, the Sunlight Stronghold, you're going to actually have +4/+0 right off the bat just by playing it. So if you're able to play this and have Dark Sun Gwyndolin or Guinevere, it'd actually be kind of funny to equip it to Guinevere because she's an illusion and never does combat. So maybe you can dunk on your opponents in that way. But that's Darkmoon Bow, a payoff for your black devotion.
A single shadow cast upon a once great kingdom, preserving the illusion of light.
All right, our last card for today's episode is Darkmoon Illusion. This is probably going to be the most controversial one, and I understand why. I feel like I could probably simplify this card a lot more than it is, but I really wanted it to be impactful and interesting, and it revolves around Gwyndolin's illusion of Anor Londo. So the actual illusion that transforms it from its dark, moody, grim stronghold to its fake light stronghold is this illusion that Gwyndolin has placed on the land, and I really wanted to emphasize that with this Darkmoon Illusion card. So for 4 colorless, a white and a black, it's a legendary sorcery, so you're only gonna be able to cast this if you have a legendary creature on the battlefield, which is great flavor for, if you have Gwyndolin or Guinevere. And its effect is a little bit wonky. So you exile all permanents other than target legendary creature you control. So this is to represent, if you had Gwyndolin on the field, you cast this, you choose him, and you exile all all other permanents. That's all your opponent's creatures, all their artifacts, all their enchantments, all their lands. For each permanent exiled this way, its controller creates a token copy of it. So basically, you're just kind of flipping everything from being a card to a token. However, they're white illusions in addition to any other colors and types, and have, when this permanent becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. That's the kind of classic illusion ability that we see in a lot of illusion cards in Magic's past, where when they get targeted by spells or abilities, they get sacrificed. So this is kind of a fun card. You also exile Darkmoon Illusion when you're done casting it, because it does a very powerful effect. The impact of this card is very up for debate. I think it would be interesting if you kind of built the deck in your favor to basically have a lot of enter the battlefield effects, because all of those are going to trigger when the tokens get created. Otherwise, it really is just going to be able to make your opponent's stuff more vulnerable, your stuff as well. But if you're a Spellslinger deck, you might not have a lot of creatures and stuff to begin with, but your opponent's creatures and now permanents are going to be able to just be targeted by anything and be sacrificed. So the one caveat is this, is that it does hit all lands, and that was to represent the fact that Anor Londo is part of the Darkmoon Illusion. Now, that could be controversial because, you know, people don't like it when you touch all the lands on the battlefield, but the fact that you basically would have to be able to target lands makes it a little bit more safe in my opinion, because there's not a lot of things that target lands specifically or target permanents specifically. Most things target artifacts, enchantments, creatures, so I feel like most people's lands are safe, but it does give you a little extra tech where you could maybe remove your opponent's lands and grief them. Very curious what your guys' thoughts are on this card though, because it is probably the most controversial design out of all of them. I was very happy with all the designs up until this point, and when I got to this one, I was struggling to figure out what to do with it. Now, I was also considering making kind of like a legendary enchantment, kind of making it an illusion over the land, but I figured this kind of fit the bill as sort of this massive spell that Gwyndolin casts. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section, and that's the last card for today's episode. All right, so thank you for watching today's episode of What If. Today we looked at what if Guinevere and Gwyndolin were in Magic the Gathering and had a few support cards alongside them. I actually really enjoyed these. I think the designs are actually getting better as I do more of them, as I kind of absorb all of these different things, and I can't wait to show you guys what is in the next episodes to come. If you did enjoy this episode, the biggest thing I could ask for you is to share it with your Magic friends and your Dark Souls friends. That makes it sound like you have friends that are Dark Souls and made of Magic. You know what I mean. Friends that are fans of Magic and Dark Souls. If you could share it with them, that'd be great. I'd love to kind of pick up some steam. Our channel is slowly growing, but anything to do the help is much appreciated. I actually think these episodes are quite fun to just, you know, discuss designs, and who knows, maybe I'll finally get a response from one of the people I started following on our new Twitter account. That is Guinevere and Gwyndolin today. Next episode, we are going to look into a arguably bigger character than the ones we've seen before. Here, let me give you this hint. It's something related to the sun and the light, but I won't spoil it from there. So you'll have to wait until next episode when we reveal that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode very much. We here at Filthy Casuals are continuing to ask, what if? In this case, what if Dark Souls? Today we're in the Dark Souls episode, but in the future, who knows what the multiverse will bring. My name's Kieran, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Bye for now.